In the ancient city of Kingsburg, where time seemed to walk hand in hand with thought, one night I was visited by a restlessness. It was not the biting cold, nor the absence of light in the city's alleys, but something deeper, something I saw reflected in the eyes of a young disciple, the gaze of someone who does not seek to understand the world, but to be adored by it. There, before me, was not a student of reason, but someone enchanted with their own image. And in that instant, I understood that I would need to write about what, in the language of modernity, they call narcissism, but which I would call radical vanity. This is not a clinical treatise, nor is it a psychological diagnosis. It is an ethical meditation on what happens to the human being when he abandons reason in the name of applause, when he exchanges moral autonomy for the servitude of the other's gaze. Because a narcissist is not just someone who loves themselves excessively, they are someone who has lost themselves. And in losing themselves, they try to drag others along. Vanity begins with a simple desire to be seen, but it soon transforms into an insatiable need for approval. The vain subject no longer lives for himself, but for the reflection he imagines he provokes in others, and in that process, he becomes from agent to object, from rational being to spectacle. He no longer thinks, he performs. Imagine a man helping a beggar on the street. He offers coins, smiles, crouches with visible empathy. But deep down, his mind does not rest on the other's need, but on the eyes watching him. The gesture is not shaped by morality, but by theatricality. He wants to appear good, not be good, and here we have the corruption of ethical action, when duty is replaced by performance. For true morality demands that we act out of duty, not out of inclination, nor interest. To act based on what one expects to receive in return, even if it's admiration, is to act from selfish impulse. It is to become a slave to sensibility, and sensibility, no matter how noble it may seem, is a capricious tyrant when it is not guided by reason. But the narcissist is not content with being adored. He wants to be central. He cannot accept that the other has their own will. He appropriates the other's freedom as if it were an extension of his own. And then he begins to manipulate. He approaches the fragile, not to strengthen them, but to make them dependent. He listens, not to understand, but to collect weapons. Every confidence he receives is stored as ammunition. He feeds off the other's insecurities. And when that person begins to grow, when they begin to set boundaries, when they stop living in function of him, the narcissist enters into crisis. It is not love that breaks, it is the spell of control that shatters, and there begins the final game. First, he flips the narrative. What he once criticized, insecurity, indecision, fragility, is now replaced by a new discourse. You've changed. You've become selfish. Now you think you're better than everyone else. He begins to criticize precisely the qualities that the other has worked hard to develop. Strength is called arrogance. Autonomy is labeled coldness. Having one's own voice is treated as aggression. It's what I call shaming strength. A strategy to make the other feel guilty for having grown, for having stepped out of the shadow, for having become free. When that tactic fails, the narcissist resorts to fabricated nostalgia. He evokes idealized memories of a past in which you were more manageable. He says, I miss who you used to be. But what he really misses is not you, but the version of you that didn't resist him. That emotional manipulation is dangerous because it makes you doubt yourself. It makes you wonder if, in becoming stronger, you lost something essential. But the truth is that he's simply trying to drag you back to a place where he had control. And when neither the shame of strength nor the nostalgia works, the narcissist plays his final card, manufactured vulnerability. He appears suddenly, fragile, sick, in crisis, with problems that seem real, but that arise precisely when you are strongest. It is drama as a tool of power. He knows exactly where to touch. Your empathy, your compassion, your guilt. He says, I know you're busy, but I really need you right now. I know you don't usually lend money, but this situation is different. Each request is an attempt to dismantle a pillar of your autonomy, to make you slowly sacrifice everything you've built. Because if you give in, he has won. He has proven that he still has power, that he can still be the center. But there's something the narcissist never understood. True strength is not in dominating others, but in mastering oneself. When you say no, you are not being cruel, you are being just. When you set boundaries, you are not being selfish, you are being whole. When you reject manipulation, even when disguised as fragility, you are affirming your freedom. Practical reason demands courage. It demands that we be faithful to the moral law within us, even when the voice outside tries to seduce us. And the moral law says, never treat the other merely as a means, but always as an end. And that applies also to oneself. Being free is risky. You will lose applause. You will lose some companions. You will lose the false comfort of being accepted at any cost. But you will gain something that no manipulator can offer, dignity. And when the narcissist realizes he no longer has power over you, he will not just see someone who escaped his control. He will see a mirror of what he himself could have been. A whole human being, an ethical subject, an individual who chose truth over performance. You are not cruel for walking away from someone who tries to diminish you. You are not ungrateful for protecting your peace. You are not selfish for choosing to grow. You are, at last, free. And that freedom is the greatest threat to one who lives by control. But it is also the greatest proof that reason, when followed with firmness, can save us from any lying mirror. And always remember, vanity needs an audience. Dignity does not. Dignity walks alone, but lifts its head with the serenity of someone who needs to prove nothing to anyone. Thus, I end this meditation with the words I once said to myself in the face of the temptations of pride. The privilege of a lifetime is not in being admired, but in becoming by one's own choice who one is in essence. And that choice begins at the exact moment you decide to no longer be controllable. Because freedom, dear reader, begins where the theater ends and duty begins.